right, so I'm Doug Pisik. I had a chance to meet and talk to some of you yesterday, which I greatly appreciated. I was excited about being on this panel because this is actually part of what my company does. And I would say that we only do a subset of what's necessary. We talk about compliance, and that's what my company does. We provide compliance training to all employees of very large companies. We provide it through online training, and it's, I believe, a subset of what needs to be done in order to minimize and mitigate the risk of discrimination in the workplace. So one of the things I completely agree with my fellow panelists here is I just don't see how with human nature you can eliminate it. I do think it needs to be minimized. And one of my favorite quotes is an Albert Einstein quote, which I've been spouting out here earlier as it was when we were talking about problem solving yesterday and such, which is intellectuals solve problems, geniuses prevent them. So what do you do upstream to try to mitigate risks? And a lot of it has to do with being human nature. A lot of it has to do with what do we do to make sure the humans understand up front what discrimination is, the negative impacts, how it's not good for your coworkers, not good for your company, and not good for yourself. And then, in order to be able to do that, you actually have the leaders of companies to be able to say, we're going to invest in making sure every single employee is aware of this. It's not good enough for the leaders to know, it's not good enough for managers to know, everyone needs to know, because discrimination comes from individuals. There might be a culture that comes from above, which lends itself down to other individuals, but it's the individuals themselves that end up either consciously or subconsciously causing to do things that ends up causing a lack of diversity and not inclusion and just flat out discrimination, which is totally wrong. So I can tell you some of the things that we do because it's something that's very personal to me, what we do to help with this. And then I've got some questions I'm going to pose to all of you. So what we do is, instead of the traditional compliance training that anyone who works in a large company has seen, almost everyone's seen it, where you go through, you check the boxes, you go click, click, click through. It is the most boring, painful, long, totally not sawed out training anyone has. Most of you work with training where people say, I want to take training. My company, we provide all the training that nobody wants to take, but everyone has to, and the lawyers want to check off that box and say, yes, everyone took it. But there's a paradigm shift that's happening out there, if I can use that long overdue phrase from the 80s and 90s. But that paradigm shift has to do with making sure that the training is not just a checkbox, but it's effective, people are learning from it, and there's more that's able to come from it. So we're looking at adaptive learning, where the people who take the training, if they don't get it and or something's wrong, it gives them different questions, more of them, makes them simpler questions, and pushes them through the training longer. We make sure that people get the questions wrong. They just can't go back and try it again. It actually gives them a different question. You can't just fake yourself through it. And we kind of force people to actually study and learn. You get scored. If you get a question wrong, you get a negative score. You just can't guess because it creates problems. We create engagement with the people, the individuals who are actually doing the training. So even though they may not want to do it, we do that. Some of the training we offer, if clients want humor, we've actually, because we're talking about improv at Fort Lisa, we actually have hired Second City up in Chicago, and they'll provide little videos that we may include in our training, so you get humorous skits or things that people can see, and they ask questions about it that relate to it. So it's important for it not to be a checkbox. It has to be engaging, and then also important, now going back to leadership, is making sure leaders understand what's happening. It's not just checking a box and saying someone took it, it's looking at the analytics around it. It's possible to take a look and say, 70% of your people answered this question this way wrong, which means that you've got a risk factor here. So going back to the preventative side of things, it's being able to identify when there are not just the micro problem, but exactly what the problems are and bring it up the chain. So the two things that I was hoping to come out of this is, one, I would like to be able to answer any questions anyone has, if you'd like to come to my table, about at least the subset of what's able to be done with the electronic learning space. because e-learning is only a subset, I believe, is what I provide, but I know it's only a subset. Sometimes you need face-to-face, you need real-life experience, not just in pick a box. An aspect, I know it's only done to help answer at least that part of it. On the flip side, here's my question to all of you. For giant companies that have sometimes hundreds of thousands of employees, and we do have clients that have hundreds of thousands of employees, with the limited resources that are available, knowing that e-learning might be the only thing the company is willing to spend money on, what is it that you would want to see in an e-learning platform that would help make sure that we are geniuses and preventing the problems instead of the intellectuals and just trying to solve them? Thanks.
Yeah, I think the whole idea about, what is it, a pound of prevention is worth an ounce of cure.
An ounce of prevention.
Yeah, and then there's that. I'm not a morning person by nature.
Yes, and.
I think that's an interesting question, is how can we create scenarios in organizations that give us the ability to prevent a lot of the challenges up front versus just trying to solve the problems after. And a lot of times companies act off of litigation, having come from a company that was litigated for a while. We saw lots of changes. How do you create a world where changes happen because it's the right thing to do, not because of fear of litigation?